Specializing in the finest assortment of oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and their accessories, RDG Woodwinds serves musicians from around the world. Their employees are all professional musicians who have a deep knowledge of the products they sell. RDG's repair shop has an international reputation with a combined 100 plus years of experience among the 5 repair technicians. Plain and simple, RDG provides excellent products and fabulous customer service. Visit them at rdgwoodwinds.com. They look forward to working with you.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH, all caps, no spaces. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at chemicalcityreeds.com.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
Girl, it is heat index of 108 in Mississippi right now. Can you please just tell me what it's like in Washington right now?
The high for today shall be 68 degrees.
It's just...
The low is 50. You wear a light jacket. You can go for a run and not feel like you're going to melt. It's a wonderful environment for growing crisp apples. The birds sing, the sun shines.
Oh my God, Becky has been because it's too hot to go to the dog park lately. So Becky has just been taking the dogs into the backyard and spraying them down with a hose.
Oh gosh. And you're like, me next.
For real. Oh my God. I'm so happy for you. And, I'm fine with it because come February, it's going to be my turn to Bragola. So
that is very true. And listen, Pullman, it's all hills. Actually, the whole town is constructed of 4 hills, and the hills have little hills. And I remember at my interview being driven around town, nothing plowed, and just like fishtailing our way through this town slide and just being like, oh my gosh. And like, how do you drive here?
You're going to have to trade in your Prius for some 4-wheel drive.
Icy hills. That's what they said. They go, you need 4-wheel drive and you need snow tires. And I was like, what? Aren't those expensive? So, yes.
I remember when we lived in Wisconsin, and somebody gave me the tip that you keep kitty litter in your car so that if you need to like pull out of a parking lot, you can just sprinkle some kitty litter behind your tires and then you can get out. I'm just going to send that tip to you.
Okay. Well, yes, you shall have the last laugh in February.
So you came up with a fantastic dish topic. Would you please enlighten our sweet, lovely listeners here of what we're going to talk about today?
Yes, I was thinking about, the academic year is upon us. We will be starting soon if we have not started already. And with COVID-19, unfortunately, continuing to be an issue, those of us who teach and play professionally are having to be flexible and malleable and adaptable. And as a teacher, I am very familiar with the snarkiest of students. I may or may not have been one myself at one time, going, when am I ever going to use this? Right?
That does not sound familiar to me at all. I've never said that in my life.
And so just this idea that our jobs do sometimes ask us or require us to learn and do things that we would never think we would actually have to do. So the dish topic today is things you've had to do as your life as a musician that you never thought would have been expected of you?
I'm going to out myself with mine. Are you ready?
Yes.
Sight reading.
Oh.
I used to be not a great sight reader. And since you're pulled in so many different directions as a professional musician, like your preparation time is so much less than I ever thought it would be. So I have actually gotten a lot better at sight reading and like moving my eyes faster on the page.
I remember Benjamin saying you have to learn music so quickly when you are a professional that he started to learn to get music to a professional level in an amount of time that as a student he would have never been able to comprehend.
Oh, 100%. And you start to recognize patterns way more. And like the amount of music that you're just playing through and you're just like devouring all this repertoire, you just start to notice like, oh, this usually follows that. And, you know, it's like this subconscious expectation that is most of the time what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is less of a surprise, even though you have like 1/16 of the preparation time that would have been acceptable when you were a student. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
I think mine would be, as I look over the course of my career, you know, I started off doing adjunct teaching and having part-time work. And when you're in that situation, the more credits that you teach, the more money you have. And so it's a life of saying yes.
More.
more, and yes. And the classes that I ended up teaching, it's like that joke about actors being like, yeah, my resume says I can do downhill skiing and
I can do acrobatics on the top of a running horse.
Absolutely.
And that is within my skill set.
Yes. I have taught like the world music courses. If you would have looked at like 25-year-old me and said, you will teach South Indian Carnatic music and Ghanaian drum ensembles, I would have been like, what? I don't know what those are.
I quit.
And guess what? Some department chair is like, hey, we'll give you 3 credits to like teach about this thing. And you go, I know all about that thing.
I am absolutely qualified to do that.
Yes, I will spend my summer figuring it out. And I'm teaching this class because all I wanted to do was teach the bassoon. And if, you know, teaching these other classes would make it so I could do that, then I've taught non-Western music, every level of theory, every level of music history, the oboe.
The ultimate.
There was a class I taught at a community college in my doctorate in Iowa City, and there was a class like Encounters in Humanities, and music was like one part of it, but also like we looked at art and dissected poetry, and I was like, sure, it's time to read Virginia Woolf. Who's he? We'll figure it out.
Never heard of him. Credit to Dan Schwartz for that joke. That is all Dan Schwartz. No, but like I teach a writing about music class to master's students. Do I have an English degree? No, I do not. Can I read the Strunk and White and the Bellman book? Absolutely, yes, I can. So that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. So the class, in order to, if you're like, I want to teach the oboe, I want to teach the bassoon, God bless you. If you start off in a job where that's all you have to do, you may acquire some classes in the process of building that you did not think you would ever teach. So when you're in your theory class and you're like, when am I ever going to have to resolve a German augmented sixth, professor? It's like, well, you might have to for 3 credits to pay for your top ramen when you are 28. So,
yes, please. I would love to teach that 14th section of music appreciation.
Oh, girl, don't even get me started on music appreciation. Okay. So we asked our listeners about theirs, and Lee Munoz, shout out Lee, said being able to MacGyver almost anything to fix a broken contra. And I'll just say instrument repair in general. Listen. That is, you're minding your business, knock, 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 Dr. Wilson. And then it's just like, what once was an instrument is like in 18 parts. They have a concert in 5 seconds and they're looking at you like, help me, what's wrong with my instrument? It's like, what do you mean? Oh, let me get out my crystal ball and figure out what's wrong with your instrument. Did you do anything to this? No.
Oh, I just opened the case and it just happened.
It was on fire. And then you see them with their friends and they're like crashing into the wall and it's like, okay.
Or it's like when someone's like, Dr. Kaunitz, I think there might be something wrong with my reed. And then you look at it and it's like split down the middle and like folded in half. I'm like, yeah, there might be something wrong with this reed.
Well, this reed is covered in so much mold that it looks like it was made out of grenadilla. So
Ew. You have moss growing from the inside of your reed.
Ugh.
Oh my goodness. So Maria sent in small talk / socializing with people I barely know at one time / regional gigs. That is so real.
Yeah, small talk in general. There are times that you're at donor events or alumni events and you are expected to smile and shake hands and kiss babies, and that's part of the gig.
And it doesn't matter how much time you've been spending in a small room by yourself. You still have to speak to other people as if you didn't just crawl out of a cave.
No, introvert. Don't make me talk. This is one that we both can relate to. Olivia says business tax declaration, a must do, which unfortunately isn't near as fun as playing music. Yeah, the tax aspect. When we started this podcast,
No.
Oh.
No.
Taxes.
My eyes immediately glazed over the moment you said the word taxes.
It's what?
Thank God for Chris Wilson. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, our tax broker, Christopher Wilson, shout out.
Oh my God.
Oh, similarly, Kika says fundraising, which is another, all the financial part.
Yes. That is a tricky, tricky little business, fundraising.
Just give me money. Don't make me deal with the money, please.
Anne sent in helping students make reads online and walking students through oboe adjustments online.
This whole online thing. I mean, that's probably what came to most people's minds in
COVID stuff.
Yeah, the COVID stuff, which is interesting. It's perfect because Lindabeth's interview, which you're all about to listen to, she breaks down read instruction online through Zoom and has some great recommendations. As soon as her interview was over, I got online and bought a USB doc cam.
Yep. And
I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna have to cannonball into those technology waters. We also got a submission from Raymond, who said flutter-tonguing a scale, which was complete oboe hell for 3 months. But guess what? He can do it now.
Yeah, extended techniques. I did not think.
Hello.
I was like, circular breathe. When am I ever going to need that? I'm not an oboist having to play Strauss. And then I needed it. Now I have it.
That's a huge accomplishment, is being able to flutter tongue on a double read, I think.
Oh, yeah. Double tongue, flutter tongue.
Circular breathing.
Everything. It's hardest for us, guys. We have the hardest instruments.
We have it the worst.
Yeah, everyone else's life is easy and ours are hard. Dylan has some good points. Grant writing, coding websites, audio recording technology, all of those things that we just don't necessarily think about that are such important skills.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dylan, now that you have those skills, maybe you can do some of them for us. Sharing is caring.
Ugly Duckling Oboes is dedicated to the development of young oboe players. They provide quality handmade oboe reeds, private lessons, and high-quality oboe sales, rentals, and consignments. The oboes that they rent are conservatory mechanism oboes that include the left-hand F key and low B flat key. All are maintained by oboe-specific technicians. In-person lessons are available, as well as virtual lessons for students who live outside the geographic area or have transportation and scheduling challenges. They also offer online college audition coaching for high school juniors and seniors who plan to audition to be music majors. Visit uglyducklingoboes.com for more details on how you can set up yourself for success and sign up for their newsletter. That's uglyducklingoboes.com.
Hey, oboists! Have you ever found it difficult to sort out when and how to find a new oboe or English horn? Oboe Chicago streamlines the process, providing personal and professional consultation and a large selection of lovely instruments. The process feels comfortable and thorough. Selection includes F. Lauret of Paris, Howarth of London, Covey oboes, and Fox products. For a current listing of Oboe Chicago's selection, please visit www.oboechicago.com. For a credit of $100 toward shipping, mention Double Reed Dish when you call or email Shauna.
We are delighted to welcome to Double Reed Dish Lindabeth Binkley, Associate Professor of Oboe at Central Michigan University. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Can you start off by telling our listeners a bit about how you came to play the oboe? How did you get started?
Oh, gosh. My students know this story. It's a sad story, actually. I wanted to play the flute. Secretly wanted to play the flute. And my parents had gone to meet with the band director at, in the 6th grade to discuss what instrument I should play. And I apparently scored very well on the aptitude test. And then the band director said to them, what kind of personality does she have? Is she determined? Is she stubborn? Does she see things through? And they were like, oh, yes. Well, then she should play the oboe. My parents were like, what's an oboe? And he said, well, look, if she's good at it, she'll get a scholarship to college. And they were like, sold. So they came home and told me that I was going to play the oboe. And I was...
Oh, they didn't ask you.
Oh, no, they did not ask me. Heck no. They were like, you're going to play the oboe. And I didn't even know what an oboe was. And I vividly remember going to the Encyclopedia Britannica, because we didn't have the internet in those days,
Sure.
And pulling down the O volume and opening it up and going, oh, it looks like the clarinet. I can carry it on the bus. It's small. So, okay, I'll play the oboe. So my requirement apparently for an instrument was that it had to be small and portable. And if it was, then that's okay. So that's kind of how I came to the oboe. My parents made me do it. I didn't exactly like it when I started. It took me a long time to learn to love it. But now, of course, I can't imagine playing anything else.
Well, Galit originally wanted to play the double bass, and
I did.
Says her parents were mean for not letting her, and I say her parents were nice for not letting her, because the double bass is a life of inconvenience. So you had it right from the beginning.
You'd have to have a big car. I mean, come on.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, the regret.
I know, right? Well, you want to know what the other dark day was? This is true, a true story. And I'm sure other oboe players will identify with this. So, the dark day was you're not going to play the flute. You're going to have to play the oboe. They started me with lessons right away with Roger Ream, who was teaching at Central Michigan University at the time, which was great. Beautiful player, beautiful sound. And he made reeds for me. I mean, he provided me with reeds. And I thought, this is great. And then when I was end of my 8th grade year, he said, okay, you're going to have to learn how to make reeds. I was like, what? I did not know that was a thing. I did not know anything about it. And he sat me down, showed me how to do it, told me to get the J-Light book and the reed making kit from Forests. And that over the summer, that was my job, was to learn how to make reeds. And I still remember the first reed I tried to tie, and the thread snapping and the cane flying and going, this is, I am not doing this for the rest of my life. This is crazy.
And here we are.
Oh, so funny when I think about it.
What a formative memory.
Yeah. I mean, it's a vivid memory of being like, what? You mean I'm not going to sound like you for the rest of my life?
I'm going to ask you a lot of follow-up questions about that later. But for now, I would love to know what made you decide to major in music in college. What path did you take on your way to becoming a professional oboist?
Sure. Okay. So I think the best way to explain that is I fell in love with the sound of the instrument, and specifically fell in love with my teacher's sound. He was a Mac student and just a beautiful player. And I really wanted to sound like that. And I thought what he could do expressively on the instrument was like amazing. But truthfully, secretly inside, I thought to myself, I'm not going to become an oboist. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Like, that's like a 1 in a million thing. But I knew I was a good teacher. So I thought, well, I can combine both, and I will do music education and study and become band director. That was my original plan. And then about middle of my sophomore year, I couldn't shut off the voice in my head that kept wanting to push me more towards orchestral playing and taking auditions and really learning how to do that. And so I secretly wanted to be an orchestral oboist. And I shared that secret desire with my teacher, who then said, no.
Oh!
Right? But to his credit, and if Roger, if you ever listen to this, please know that this is another one of those vivid memories in my head. He said no. He goes, you can. I'm going to prepare you like you're going to become an orchestral player, and I'm going to give you the skills and study the repertoire, and we're going to do that. But behind that screen, no one's going to care what your degree says. And if that doesn't work out for you, having the music ed degree will be a good fallback plan. So he was right. But I remember that initial no still like resounded in my head for like years.
No.
Exactly. It's like, what? But he was right. And I have never, ever regretted studying music ed as an undergrad, because I have used those skills hands down in all the teaching that I've done since then. And when I was in the orchestra and doing master classes and quintet shows, and all those skills kind of came together in a really beautiful way. So that's kind of how it happened for me.
What happened next after your undergraduate?
Oh, after my undergrad, I thought, okay, I'm going to follow this desire. I'm going to do the orchestral thing, but money was an issue. So I needed to go someplace that had a good assistantship. And that wound up being the University of Colorado at Boulder. And the great thing about that experience was, I had studied with Roger from the time I was a little sixth grader until I finished my undergrad. I mean, he knows me almost as long as my parents. And so I was very firmly schooled in the Mac school and this dark, beautiful sound. And when I went to Boulder, Colorado, I went to a Colorado Symphony concert, which happened to be the very first season where Peter Cooper was principal oboe. And I sat in the audience and heard some of the most incredible playing I'd ever heard in my life, like expressive and beautiful color. And it was like a sound and an approach to the instrument that I had not been exposed to before. And I thought, oh God, I really want to be able to do that. Was so inspiring. And so I stalked him and waited outside the concert hall door. I'm sure, I don't know that he remembers this, but I remember like the second that concert was over, I was like, I got to find the concert, I got to find the backstage door. And so I did. I waited there until he came out, and I grabbed his arm and I'm like, do you teach private lessons?
Was he like security?
I know, right? I mean, I did introduce myself beforehand, but he's like, sure. And so then I started to study with him during my master's. And with him, I was very, open about the fact I really wanted to do this orchestral thing. And that was an amazing 2 years I spent, learning from him. And then went from there and wound up winning an English horn job in Tucson. And that's another totally different story. But so I ended up going down to Tucson, playing English horn, and then coming back to Denver and acting second oboe for a year with him, then going back down to Tucson, where I eventually won the principal oboe job, and started my doctorate at the University of Arizona, again, because that seemed like it might be a smart idea, just to have that. I knew that I was eventually going to end up teaching at a college setting, because I'm a teacher. I just know that that's very much part of who I am. So I got the doctorate there, studied with Neil Tapman, which was fabulous. And then And about, was this May of 2009, got a phone call from the director of bands here at the time who said, hey, our oboe professor has taken another job and we need somebody to fill in for a year. Would you be interested? And is that something that you'd consider doing? He said, you'd have to apply, put your application in and go through the process. But what do you think? And so I hung up the phone and I thought, well, maybe it's time. So I applied, got the job, took a leave from the orchestra because I wasn't quite sure I was ready to leave the orchestra, and then decided to stay, and really pursue college teaching, and applied for the full-time position when it became available, and they decided to keep me, which is good. And here we are.
Was that at all a compromise in your mind? I feel like sometimes we buy into this idea of two paths. You kind of either go down one route or you don't, and you had been very attracted to the orchestral route. But you said you were always interested in teaching. How did you think of your career and the way that it would shape up? Were you kind of open or particularly invested? Was there a shift? I'd love to hear about your mentality in terms of this journey.
I think, well, there were a couple things that happened that were external forces that definitely influenced that decision. One was the fact that my mother was at the final stages of a terminal illness. And so it sort of felt like, okay, this would be a time where I could go back and be with her, and spend time with her. So that was something that I factored in. There was also the idea of wanting to try something new, and the opportunities that are available to you as a university professor are things that I wasn't able to do as when I was in the Tucson Symphony. The Tucson Symphony was also regional orchestra. And while I loved it, and I still miss it, it was not growing at a rate where the salary was going to, keep up with me becoming an adult, so to speak, So there were a lot of, I'd say, probably like grown-up considerations that were kind of coming into play when I was making that decision.
So you have mentioned that once you graduated 8th grade, you were forced to learn how to make reeds from the J-Light book by yourself over the summer.
Yeah.
You went from Michigan to Colorado to Tucson to Colorado to Tucson to Michigan.
Yes.
And you also have a fantastic Instagram account called Thin the Tip, where you give wonderful reed making advice, videos, problem solving, before and after pictures. And I'm getting the feeling that it comes from hard-won experience.
Yes, that would be true.
This is a Double Reed podcast. I want to hear about your reed making, your perhaps what's important to you in your reed making philosophy, maybe, and maybe even how you approach reed making pedagogy.
That's a big question.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay, let's start at the beginning. So for me, when I said I wanted to be an orchestral player, the reed thing became like a huge deal for me, because I learned very quickly that your reeds had to respond when you needed them to respond, and they have to play in tune. They have to be consistent. And when I left my undergrad, while Roger was a great teacher and he was a great reed maker, he wasn't necessarily like, he would tell me what I needed to do, but then he would show me on my reeds. So in many cases, I wasn't doing the work, right? And so when I went to Colorado from, sea level to 5,000 feet above sea level, my reeds wigged out. Like, I had no idea what to do, how to handle it, and why that J-Light method just wasn't working for me at 5,000 feet. And so luckily I did run into Peter, who helped me sort of figure that all out, and how to really listen to the cane and the vibrations and the crowing. And so I think through him, I started to really learn that if I stuck to basics, if I kept things very simple and really thought about how the reed vibrates from tip to back, I would have much more success, instead of relying on a series of measurements and expectations that this is how a reed will always be. And so because of that sort of approach to teaching, that like opened up worlds of success, I guess I would say, for me, taught me so much. And so then when I got my principal job in Tucson, and it was incredibly stressful, because it was something I always really wanted, but was terrified of. And now I really have to make sure my reads are right up there where they are, or, where they need to be. And so it was very stressful. I'm just going to put it that way. And I swore that when I became a teacher, I would come up with a system or an approach so that my students and anyone else that I can help will not have that sense of anxiety or go through that kind of stress. So that's sort of how this whole approach kind of evolved, was really out of the desire to help other people not stress out about their reads. So I approach things by trying to dig down into the simplest rule, which is always that the tip must vibrate first, and everything else comes after that. And then learning how to interpret the crow so that you know where to scrape, so that by understanding the crow, you can consistently build the reed the same sort of way each time, no matter what the cane's doing, no matter what altitude you're at or the humidity level. That's the premise. And then the thin the tip thing came out about because I was getting lazy. I can't believe I am admitting this to the world of oboe players, but I will.
Jackie, cut this out. I'm just kidding.
I was getting lazy and overwhelmed with my teaching schedule. And so I was experiencing like panic a week before a concert I was supposed to play, because my reads weren't coming together, and because I hadn't been making them consistently. And I was like, I need to come up with a system or something that makes me feel accountable, because apparently I can't do it myself. And so but then the tip was sort of my answer to that, because I was like, I have to post that every day I've done something with a reed, whether it's tie it up or just scrape on the tip or make a tiny adjustment, but I had to like document it. And so it really started as a way to help myself stay accountable. The side benefit of it, however, was taking all those pictures and figuring out how to take those pictures made me see the reeds in a completely different way. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know I did that. Look at that. That's uneven. I need to adjust that. And so that also helped, has helped me. So that's why the thin the tip thing happened. And I'm really happy that it is helpful to people. I try to be really honest and not make things up. You guys see the real deal. The good, the bad, the ugly, the I don't feel like doing it kind of thing.
I was at your presentation about reed pedagogy at IDRS in Georgia, where you laid out some strategies for making reed class engaging and creative. And I remember just being like, okay, this lady is on a whole nother level. She's not surviving, she's thriving, and therefore her
That's right
too. And so I'd love if you could maybe tell us about some of the creative things that you've brought into your reed class in terms of your reed making pedagogy.
So teaching reed making can be really challenging, especially when students aren't particularly self-motivated to do it, because it's hard and it's overwhelming and they get frustrated quickly. And so I realized about a year or two in, I had to come up with some ways to make it more interesting and more fun and give them more ownership over the process. So one of the things that we do one of the favorite things that we do is what I call the crow it out exercise, where I pair them, and only the person that has made the read gets to crow, and the other person has to adjust it. And so they work together to diagnose the crow, and then the person has to, figure out if they can make the adjustment to make it better for the student. And that is so much fun to watch, because you see them like puzzling things out. They all agree that if the person scraping wrecks the reed, that they'll just pull another one out and start over. And I encourage my students, believe it or not, to make a lot of mistakes. So every exercise that I kind of design I always say to them, doesn't matter if you don't end up with a successful read, because you are going to have learned something from that experience. Everything I've done, all the things I've designed, have been to put the student more in control of the process, so that they're learning from their mistakes. Another good one that I love to do is, I call it the 5-minute read fix, where I go into a practice room, which is next to one of our classrooms, and rotate through the students every 5 minutes. And during that 5 minutes, I will scrape on the read based on what they tell me they think it needs, whether I agree with it or whether I don't. If they crow on it and they're like, oh, it's too hard, so I'll, lighten up the tip. I think they'll say, I think the tip's needs more off of it, and I'll do that, and then hand it back to them. Then they go test the read. They get in line. They do it. We do this process over and over again. But I don't say anything other than just, you tell me what you want me to do, so that I can do the fixing, and then kind of show them how that structure or whatever imbalances in there, removed, fixed, adjusted, whatever you want to call it, will make the read better. So that's a good one. I'm trying to think now. I should have all of them.
Wasn't there something like a relay race?
Oh. If you really want to stress out your students, definitely do this.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, yeah. This is fun. It's slightly crazy, but it is super fun. So you put them into teams, and you elect like a team captain, and their only job is to crow the reed. And so they make the reed in stages. Like, one person's responsible for the rough scrape, one person's responsible for getting the tip vibrating and balanced, and then straight through to finishing. And we see which team can build the reed the fastest and the best. And so arguments break out, discussions break out, no, crow it again, no, crow slower, crow, because they're only can use the one person's crow, right? So they get very nitpicky about, hearing people crow. And I've done that exercise with high school kids, that towards the end of our read making camp, and they are able to make a read. It may not sound that great, but they get a read vibrating. So the relay race is fun. Should I talk about Flipgrid? Do you guys know about Flipgrid?
Talk about it.
Flipgrid?
Yeah.
Okay. So particularly, I think now, because of who knows what's going to happen in the fall when classes go back, if we go back. One of the things that I've found to be really helpful is using it's a Microsoft product called Flipgrid, where students, it's an app on their phones. They can take a quick video of themselves crowing or playing, discuss the read, and they send it to me, and then I can evaluate it, give them helpful hints, or I can set it up so that it's public for the entire studio to see, and say, okay, you all have to solve each other's read problems. And so they'll have comments and shoot videos to each other, and it sort of just takes place in this very safe, secure environment, because it's only accessible to the students that you give accessibility to. So they have to have a CMU email address to even go into this thing. They like Flipgrid. That's been really helpful in terms of if they're sitting in the practice room and it's 10 o'clock at night and they've got a read question and they don't know what to do, they'll just do a quick Flipgrid and send it to me. And then the next morning I'll open it up and give them some video feedback back, and they can fix that problem really quickly. So that's been one thing that's been particularly helpful.
What tips do you have for double read teachers who are going to have to figure out how to teach read making on the internet? You know, we can't play on our students' reads. We can't scrape on our students' reads. We need to teach them and we need to help them, but you know, we can't touch them.
I know.
So what
I know.
ideas do you have for present company?
For present company. So the first thing I would say, and their names escape me at the moment. There are a couple people that have put out some really good YouTube videos about this. But the best thing I would recommend is to get a hands-free holder for your phone or a USB document camera so that you have two cameras to work with. And what I do is I sign in on my phone and on the laptop, and then I can put the phone on my hands or on the read.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You know what I mean? And so if I'm giving them, they'll crow or then they'll play and I'll say, it sounds to me like you need to do this. And then I can show them where on the read they should scrape, right? The frustrating part that I have not quite figured out yet is on the iPhones that have autofocus. Sometimes that can be a bit of a pain in terms of getting it to settle. So the document camera, I think, is probably might be a better solution. So I'm in the process of kind of updating that and trying it. But worst case scenario, the whole 2-camera thing with the phone, that is the way to go. The other thing that I do is, this is not going to surprise you at all. I have a new tutorial on how to take pictures of your oboe reeds.
Yay!
I know. I have to clean it up though, because I just did it for the camp that I teach at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. But hands down, what has helped me the most with the virtual thing is making my students send me pictures of their reeds. And I have specific views and angles that I want them to show me. So at least I can, look at it. They text them to me or they email them to me. I can look at those pictures and see kind of at least, the imbalances and stuff that might be going awry. And then what's also cool about that is if you put those pictures into a PowerPoint and share your screen, you can show them what you're looking at and point out what you're seeing on their reads. And then the other students see what you're showing them. And that really helps them starting to recognize patterns and fixes that way. So the read picture thing, I know it's not perfect. I know it's hard to tell which blade is the thicker and the thinner, but it's better than nothing. And for me, I've looked at enough reads that I'm pretty good at figuring out what's going on.
While we're talking to the read guru, since you have had the specific experience of being dropped down in Boulder, Colorado, and right now the plan is for all of us to do the same for audience of our peers who
Yes.
know what they're looking for in terms of sound. What advice, you already gave great advice in terms of expectation and routine and listening to what the read is saying, but maybe what advice for high altitude read making and that traumatic experience?
Yes, I would say, and again, this is just my experience. So I'm sure there will be people that'll be like, no, that's not right, but whatever. In my experience, the higher you go in altitude, the wider your shape has to be. So a little bit more width will give more room for that air to kind of move through the reed, which will help keep it from wanting to close up and be sharp, because most of us will have trouble with the reed feeling tight and sharp. So I would also say, don't expect to make a reed at sea level and finish it even at high altitude. I think you're better off to take your cane and your shaper tip and tie it up and do it right from scratch when you get there, because I think it's always kind of like playing Russian roulette with a reed. It'll work really well for maybe an hour. When you first get up there, you'll be like, oh, I'm going to be fine. It's going to be great. And then 2 or 3 hours later, or the next morning, you will take that reed out and it'll be like, not going to happen. Not going to work for you, because it's adjusted and it's settled. So the best success is always, I think, to make, whatever part of the process, whether you're bassoon or oboe, like I imagine if you're a bassoonist, take a blank, but then finish it there. But wider shape, smaller diameter tube cane also is a big one for oboe. So if you're used to using 10.5, take it down to 10. When I lived in Boulder, I was using 9.5 to 10 diameter tube cane, and that really helped because they just don't vibrate the same way, and you kind of, yeah. So that's what I would recommend.
You are not only a fantastic teacher and reed maker and player, but you're also a recording artist. And you've recently come out with your CD, From Earth to Sky, the music of Jenny Brandon. Would you tell us about that project and how it came to fruition?
Yes, I would be happy to talk about that. That project came about because I met Jenny at the IDRS convention in Columbus, Georgia. And I was playing her Wildflower Trio, which I really, really liked. And so when I got home, I was looking for other pieces of repertoire of hers because I wanted to program something on my recital, and ran across her Love Songs piece for soprano and oboe. And we have a fabulous soprano on faculty at the time. And we'd always wanted to do something together. So we're like, let's do this piece. And we fell in love with that piece. And then we both were like, maybe we should record this. And so that sort of started the ball rolling. And I'm trying to think, why did I end up settling on just Jenny's music? It really had to be, it was about the fact that I felt like people didn't know her music enough, like didn't understand the variety of chamber works that she has available to her, and in her writing, in her compositions. And so I wanted to put together a CD that would appeal to a lot of different people in the hopes that her music would now make it onto other programs, whether it be a clarinet player, a bassoonist, a singer, that has an oboist in their in their arsenal of friends. But it's about getting, particularly female composers, getting their music out there more, getting it into the repertoire. So that's sort of why that whole thing came about. And then it was just tons of fun trying to put it together. A lot of moving parts. Maybe not the smartest idea for your first CD to do one, a whole bunch of different people, but it's fun, and I'm quite happy with it. And I really love the piece that she wrote for me on it, which is called Wood Song. That was really fun. I'd never worked with a composer before on anything, so that was a great experience.
Could you tell us more about that experience of collaborating with a composer? And like, if we have any listeners who that idea kind of intrigues them, but they don't know exactly what it looked like, talk to us about that process collaboratively.
Sure. So Jenny, when we were discussing repertoire and I was saying, I'd like to put this on, that on, we needed a little bit more time in the CD. And she said, well, why don't I write a piece for you? And I was like, okay. So let's write a 4-minute piece. It turned out to be about 7, but 4-minute work. Okay. So then she said, well, what do you want me to write it about? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not the composer. I have no idea. And so she's like, okay, well, let me think about it. And she really likes my playing. And so she ran across this Sarah Teasdale poem, and she said, what about this? This sounds like a really good, inspiring piece. And I love the poem too. I'm like, sure, that's great. It talks about a wood thrush. So I think I'm going to try to figure out a way to add these bird calls into the piece. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Okay. So she sends me Audubon recordings of wood thrush calls and says, what can you emulate on the oboe? So we played around with some things I recorded and I sent it back to her. And then I tease her about this one. So she sent me the first draft, and it had, the very first thing was the opening figure and then a flutter tongue. Pianist, like piano or pianist, it was supposed to be light and delicate. And I was like, I don't think she really wants that. So I said, I called her up, and I was like, Jenny, this is what the oboe sounds like when it flutter tongues. I go, and she goes, oh, no. That's not what there. I'm like, good. So, it was this really kind of dynamic give and take. She'd send me something. I would be like, do you mean this? Is this the articulation you want? If this is what you want, oboists will interpret what we're seeing one way, and this is not what you're telling us that you want. If what I'm playing is what you want, you need to write it this way, especially with articulation. And she was really great about that. There is one moment in the piece that I will take credit for. There's a moment where the oboist has to go up to a high G, and that's my fault because she had originally written it going down to an E. And I said, Jenny, just feels like I'm at the top of this phrase and I have to keep going. I have to keep soaring. And she goes, I don't know. And I'm like, no, it'll be okay. People can do it. So yeah, sorry about the high G people, but it's worth it. It's totally worth it. Because when you really let go, it just feels so good. But Jenny was really great about being in communication and sharing and open to any ideas that I had. So I think you just have to find that composer that's really, really willing to collaborate with you and play to your your strengths. Because that's what she definitely did in that piece. So, but I highly recommend it. It's great fun, really fun.
Were you initially a little bit wary about asking her to change things?
Yes.
Because I know, like, when you get a piece of music, your first instinct is, whether you commissioned it or not, is this is what it's supposed to be. I have to do this. So I'd love to get your advice on, commissioning a composer and working with them on the piece.
I think the reason it worked well for us, and this would be my advice to everybody else who does this, and that is to always approach it from the direction of asking the composer, what is it that you want to hear, and playing examples. So it's not like I was not saying this is right, or this isn't, I don't think you want this. You know what I mean? I would always just play what I thought or what I see on the page, and then ask her, is this what you were thinking? Because I kind of hear that maybe this might work, maybe better, maybe different. And she was always open to that, so that idea of treating it like, sure, here's what you're telling me you want by what I see on the page. This is how I would interpret it and how others might interpret it. Is that what you want? Mm-hmm. And, most of the time, if it's compelling enough in how it's delivered musically, they will respond, I think. Mm. And sometimes, in some cases, I think there's also a situation where I just had to be like, listen, us diminuendoing on a low B flat to pianissimo, that's probably not going to happen very well. If you don't want it to go at the end, you might want to consider bumping that up. And she was
comedy night at the laugh hut.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the other thing. I think the flip side of that too is that I also was incredibly respectful. There were some conversations we had that she was like, no, that's not what I want. I want it this way. And then I was like, okay, I will figure out how to do what I need to do to make this happen for you. So it's that really cool sort of give and take. And as long as the composer is open to that, I think it's a totally worthwhile experience for both people.
What I always wanted to say is some people can do that, but I can't do that.
Right. Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us about a favorite memory of a past performance that sticks out in your mind as special?
Oh, wow. Yes. I was thinking about this just the other day because I was missing. I got all teared up, you guys. I got all teared up watching Stars and Stripes being played on the lawn in Chicago. Did you guys see that YouTube video of this little neighborhood thing? And I got all teared up over Stars and Stripes because I was like, when am I going to be able to do that? Mm-hmm. And so that made me think of this moment. And I think this is such an important moment for me because of the journey I had getting into the principal chair in Tucson. And when I finally was able to do it, but it was in my first season. And we did Shostakovich First Symphony. And that has, one of the most gorgeous oboe solos ever, right? And we had a guest conductor there. And we finished that concert. And before he even turned around to the audience, he got off the podium and walked over to me, to my chair, shook my hand and had me stand up.
Oh.
And for me, that was like, wow. Because I do remember the moment of playing it and feeling my sound like that. I think what gets us going as an orchestral player is that moment when you hear your sound out in that hall and like just sailing over everything and realizing you have this control and this ability to express, all this emotion. And I had a good read. So I was able to just play freely. And then to have the conductor do that it just was so affirming. It was like, okay, I made the right choice. I'm going to be okay. This person who doesn't know me from a hole in the wall thinks I did a good job. I can do this, right? And so I think for me, that still stands out as one of the finer memories I have in the orchestra for sure.
Now, enough feeling good about yourself. Now we want to know if there is a funny or embarrassing story that you could tell us of something that happened on stage.
Oh, I have so many. As you know, I am fraught with comedy. Okay, I will tell this one because this one still keeps me up at night.
Yeah,
it does. Like, it's one of those moments that, especially as a teacher, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. So when I was doing my master's, I was asked to play a concert, like a fundraising concert for the Boulder Bach Festival. So I was going to play these obligato arias that I didn't know. I mean, it was the first time learning them with faculty members from CU in this very intimate church setting. And the rehearsals had gone well. Everything was going well. And I forgot to copy my page turn before the concert and practice with my page turns before the concert, right? But I copied it on my way to the concert and neglected to put them in the right order. So, those things are da capo. And I got them all like discombobulated on my stand in the performance. And then I flipped and it was the wrong da capo for the wrong aria. And I was doing this and back and this and back. And, oh, it's awful. I mean, I was instantly red. I mean, I wanted to crawl in a hole and die. And it was awful. It was awful. It was awful.
I love it.
I apparently have page turn issues, which means I should start playing from an iPad. But then I think that's a whole other world of hurt for me. So this one happened fairly recently in front of my students, in front of faculty members. So we were doing a Powers Woodwind Quintet concert, and we were playing the Poulenc Sextet, and it was after intermission. And I thought that my part was on my stand, and went out, sat down, got ready to start, and I was like, moving my music. Where's the Poulenc? And I was like, oh, shoot. So I was like, you guys, I have to go get my music. They were like, 1 second, get up, very calmly walk backstage, kick my feet off, run, like, get out of hell, down the hall, into my office, flip on the lights, like, where is it, found it, run back, throw my shoes back on, calmly walk out. And my heart was just like, dum, 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 dum. And, of course, the whole audience is dying and laughing, and the quintet was laughing as well, but it was super embarrassing for me because it was like, I'm the professor, right? I should have my music together and on the stand. It's awful. It's just awful. And I'll never forget like playing that opening with that, my heart was just racing and trying to be all calm. Oh, good times.
It's those human moments that really keep us humble.
Oh yeah.
In addition to making sure that their sheet music is always secure and ready to go, what advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
Wow, that's a big question. And I think the best thing that I would say is it's really about preparation and consistency. and taking the time to do things and learn things well and learn things correctly the first time around. And that is everything from how to give an A to playing your scales to, learning how to use fork F or left hand F and when. But I think too many times students want to play repertoire that's really hard and exciting, and they want to play the Strauss before they can really play a Barrett melody as beautifully and in tune and with gorgeous vibrato. And I mean, the thing that has always held me, and I think it's why I've been successful, is the fact that I took the time to learn Barrett and learn phrasing and learn how to play in tune, so that when I get into those concert settings, those skills are there. I mean, that's the root of everything. The rest of it's just icing, being able to play, Tombo or La Scala. I practiced my C major scale, people. I did. At all kinds of tempos. I mean, seriously. So, it's being patient and having time to get the skill set. And then it's also, the second part of that is to believe in yourself and to believe that you have something to say, and it's worth going through all this craziness of learning how to make reeds and play your melodic minor scales and, give a good A. That, it's worth it because you get to express all that good stuff, and move people. That's what I like to do. I like to reach people through what I do.
Lindabeth, thank you so much for joining us and giving us so generously an hour of your time. It was a pleasure to talk to you on Double Reed Dish.
Well, you are welcome. Thank you again for having me. This was great fun.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can listen anywhere that you normally get your podcasts. We would love if you would leave us a rating and review. And if you have something to say to us, you can write us at doublereaddish@gmail.com. Galit, who's coming up on the next ep?
You really threw me with the app. Anyway, we have Shiro, Monica Ellis, bassoonist of the Imani Winds. Super excited to share that one with all of you. Jackie, time to end this nerd parade.
Go make reeds.
On a doc cam.
On a doc cam. Yes.